What's happening? What's happening? What's happening? Of course, you know it's your boy B Hot Radio Shout and stepping in the building. I got a friend and family member to the show, an entrepreneur, a filmmaker, an author, an all-around renaissance man off in this thing. Tariq Nasheed, what's good with it, man?
I'm good, Mr. B. How you know I wouldn't come to Atlanta without coming up here, brother?
Hey, man, I appreciate you pulling up as always, though. I mean, this new documentary, Microphone Check.
Yes.
Now, what was it that made you get back into this hip-hop thing with the documentary, sir?
Yeah, now you know I do the history documentary.
That's
I'm
right.
real big on uncovering a lot of untold and hidden history.
That's right.
And I'm also a huge hip-hop fan. I've always been.
Of course.
And I've seen that in hip-hop, there has been a lot of stuff that's been uncovered about the real history of it.
Okay.
People kind of touch on the origins of it, but they rewrite the history. And we just had the 50th anniversary of hip hop, and there were a lot of false narratives being put out.
Okay.
And I'm like, okay, we gotta get to truth to power. So let me do a film talking about the real origin of hip hop, where all of the elements came from, and give props to the real pioneers. And just uncover a lot of things that people didn't know about the culture.
Okay, were there any things that you didn't know about that you discovered that just kind of blew your mind?
Well, a lot of the early B-boys, we got like the first breakdancers in the film. There's a guy, but the very first breakdancer, a guy named Trixie, he's in the film.
Okay.
Another early pioneer, a brother named Sasa, he's in the film. These guys were breaking in the early 1970s.
Okay.
One thing I learned that Sasa, he started doing certain moves that other people picked up on because he was double jointed. And he could do these moves that a lot of folks couldn't do.
Okay, you damn right.
So that was like one of the progenitors of modern breakdancing. So I learned a lot of little nuanced stuff like that. I learned that a lot of the gangs in New York would actually do security at a lot of the hip hop parties to protect them from getting robbed at those parties. Because in the Bronx in the 70s, it was real dangerous. You had heroin addicts. It was a dangerous spot.
That's real.
So they kind of had a little deal with the gangs to look out for them.
Okay.
So these kids, man, they were on code with each other. They had a little system where they looked out for each other, man. That's a very honorable thing to think about it.
Exactly.
You know? So there's a lot of things like that in the movie we uncovered.
How did the originators feel when Tariq Nasheed reached out to them to get their story?
They were happy because what happens is when they do documentaries about hip hop, and most of the documentaries come from the corporate structure.
Yeah.
They'll get one or two pioneers and talk to them for 2 seconds and then jump to some modern rapper. And we didn't want to do that. We wanted to stick to the 70s. What happened in the 1970s?
Damn.
Yeah, because hip hop was cultivated in the 70s, bubbling, from the 60s, and they were very happy to be able to tell their story. They were glad to have a platform to tell their truth.
Yeah.
And we wanted to give them the honor to really tell people where they were inspired and how they came up with this culture that inspired the world now.
How do they feel about where hip hop is at now, though?
A lot of them are good with it. A lot of them are glad that they're getting some of the recognition they're supposed to get. Again, they had the 50th anniversary last year, so there were a lot of media outlets that were interested in some of these pioneers. They started to throw a few other people in there claiming that they were pioneers too. And that's why we wanted to clear a lot of things up in the film. But yeah, a lot of them are very happy.
Is that Fat Joe you talking about?
No, Fat Joe, a lot of people have been critical of Fat Joe because Fat Joe went out last year, he was like, hip hop was started by blacks and Latinos 50-50. And a lot of the pioneers kind of felt a certain way about that because that's not necessarily true. And then the media came through with a narrative talking about hip hop was created by blacks and Latinos, blacks and Latinos. Hip hop was created by black kids. The Latino cats came later. They were like third, fourth generation. They were cool. They did some great things with hip hop, but you just got to pay honor and respect to the people who really created. These brothers and sisters went through a lot to create this culture, and the socio-political and racial conditions caused them to create this culture, and that should be honored properly.
Okay, so break down those conditions that you speak of. I mean, what was it that made them say, you know what, we got to just do our own thing out here?
And this is why we go into the background of these brothers and sisters, these early pioneers, who their parents were. A lot of their parents were the baby boomers who moved to the Bronx and Harlem from the South. And they, Harlem was the Renaissance. It was like the Black Mecca. So a lot of black people up there, they were going to the Apollo. Those baby boomers were buying a lot of funk and soul records. And, us growing up, we had a house full of records. Our parents had Aretha Franklin, James Brown. We had a house full of records.
That's right.
And every black family had a stereo console.
Come on now.
All of us. So we grew up with that funk music, that R&B music. And those brothers and sisters in the Bronx, because they were being deprived a lot of resources, they couldn't go to dance classes, they couldn't go to private schools. The Bronx was being decimated by landlords burning down buildings. Drugs were being flooded into the community. So this is the environment these children were in. They couldn't get into the disco clubs. So they were always told that they couldn't do this, you couldn't do that. So they said, okay, if we're going to be left out here, let's create something constructive. Let's get our mom's records and let's get 2 copies of them. Let's get 2 turntables. Bring your turntable, you bring yours. Let's put them together. Let's spin the records back and forth. Let's rhyme like we see Muhammad Ali and Dolomite and some of those other people we saw in the 70s doing the rhyming and toasting. Let's do what they do. Let's do what some of the tap dancers are doing. We can't get tap dancing classes, but we can freestyle on the floor like the Nicholas brothers, the Hines brothers. And let's create this culture on our own. And then let's use graffiti that a guy out of Philly did named Cornbread, which came to the Bronx. And let's do this and let's stay out of trouble.
How do they feel about the monetization of hip-hop going forward, though?
Yeah, a lot of people have kind of reservations about how the commercialization of hip-hop, well, the music, I would say that the music of hip-hop has been more commercialized. And you know what? Some of the other culture, because look, if you look at a lot of advertising, they use rap and hip-hop in everything now. The corporate structure, the clothing entities, they look and see what the hip-hop generation's wearing. They look and see what you're listening to, what you're eating, what you're watching. So they have whole marketing teams that sit here and watch the hip-hop community to find the next social cues. So I just want us to get in on the monetization. That's the big thing.
No, I'm with you on that. Now, I mean, in trending topics in hip-hop, we had the Kendrick Lamar and Drake battle and beef. I mean, what were your thoughts on that, Tariq?
That was good. That was good, as long as it stayed on wax. Now, because it looked like it was about to spill over for a minute, so everybody chilled out, which is good. They chilled out, which is good, because rap battles, man, that's a part of the game. And one of the first viral rap battles is with Busy B and Kumo D. Busy B was in our movie. And that was a battle that reverberated outside of New York. People were talking about that in the early 80s, and that blew up Kumo D's career. So battling in the arena of rap, that's a great thing. We just don't want things to spill off into a Tupac and Biggie tragedy. So I'm glad that we are now kind of self-policing when things get a little crazy. You know, we don't want another Gucci Man Jeezy situation. You know what I'm saying? When things go there, when it gets a little bit too street, that's when we kind of got to reel it back. And I wish we had more people in the hip-hop community to step up, like a Jay Prince. I respect what he did with Pusha T and Drake. Right. So we need more of that. Some OGs to come along and say, hey, let's kind of chill out so this don't get crazy.
Who won the beef?
Oh, Kendrick.
Kendrick. When you heard that Not Like Us, how did you feel, sir?
Man, I kind of had them tied at first. I'm like, Drake got something going, and Kendrick got something going. And when Kendrick came with Not Like Us, look, I'm from the West Coast, man. He got a whole coast bouncing off that song. To the point where, Drake can't come out to the West Coast like that. But yeah, Kendrick did his thing, man. Yes, he did.